if it's just me, the audio is kind of breaking up a little bit. Yeah, I think that's better.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Awesome. Sorry about that. AirPod
No
issues.
So, William, I'll let you take it away with the presentation. And for everyone listening in, we have the most awesome Decentraland BadgerDAO jackets that we're giving out. So please join our Discord, paste a question and your wallet address in the AMA channel, and we'll be distributing those shortly. So yeah, take it away, William. And if you need to share your screen, go ahead as well.
Yeah, awesome. I think what I'll do is if we can queue up that video and then I'll share my screen, get into the presentation. But just to tee it up, I wanted to share sort of an interesting video. It's got a few clips from about, I think we're 27 years ago. It's kind of the beginning of the internet and all of the sort of talk around what it means for everybody. So I thought it'd be a good way to sort of kick off the presentation.
Perfect. Okay, we'll start with that.
Thanks.
Millions of Americans own a person.
Cool. Thanks for teeing that up.
No problem.
So why did I want to share that? I thought it was a really interesting video because I think that perhaps in 20 years from now, you could do a similar type of video talking about decentralized finance and crypto in general. A lot of similar themes that happened in that video. People unsure, people feeling like there's too much information, they don't understand it, so they don't want to participate in it. So there are a lot of sort of reoccurring themes that we see with the decentralized finance today. So I hope today through this presentation that I, kind of give you a good sense of what DeFi is. And apologies, I'm sure a lot of you have attended many workshops and some of this might be repetitive, but set the groundwork for what DeFi is, what BadgerDAO is, and how it all sort of works together and how we can kind of get you guys involved. And thanks, Emma, for reaching out. This is really awesome. It's exciting to see a type of event that sort of aims to bridge sort of creative minds with the decentralized finance world, people who are already exploring digital space and now have an opportunity to learn a little bit more about sort of the financial side of things. So really exciting. So I'll share my screen now. Can everybody see that now? Share 1 sec. Oh. There we go. Awesome. Sorry about that. All right, so like I said today, objectives are essentially, who am I? That might help understand my role at Badger. What is DeFi? If you sort of haven't, quite figured it out yet, what is BadgerDAO and what do we do essentially? How do you get started? And then I'm going to dig into a little bit of NFT stuff that I think would be relevant to sort of the digital fashion world. Right, so who am I? So my current role is marketing lead at BadgerDAO. So day to day, I handle anything from events, social media, written communications and blog format, creative design, marketing strategy, etc. And now branching out into doing events like this, which is really exciting. I'm excited about it. Why I think it matters is in a past life, I'm not a finance person and I'm not a dev person. I actually come from more of a traditional marketing background. So specifically focused in brand marketing, began my career in music management and marketing around artists, ended up sort of in sponsorship consulting and live event management near the end sort of the period where I crossed over into DeFi. So I think that it's safe to assume I'm speaking to sort of a lot of creative minds in the fashion space who are now looking to get into digital. I want to assure you that, a matter of months ago, I was quite new to a lot of these concepts, especially from a finance and dev side. I'm still learning. And one of the things that's really cool and interesting about DeFi is there are varying levels of expertise, I suppose, in the space, but everybody is still learning and growing together. It's very much in that infancy phase that I would liken to the internet video that I started with, where a lot's happening. It's a little bit clunky. It's a little bit hard to understand, and rightfully so. But we're working in the direction so that in 20 years from now, we can look back and go, wow, look where we started and how far we've come since then. And ironically, the internet and sort of the pushback there is the very platform that all of this is built on, and the reason I could talk to you all today. So kind of exciting stuff. So what is DeFi? I'm guessing you've seen other presentations this week. You probably gathered a lot of information, so apologies if I'm repeating myself, but I'm kind of going to go over a little bit as it pertains to Badger specifically and cover a few things. So I found this really great quote in an article that aimed to explain DeFi essentially. So imagine it as a global open alternative to every financial service you use today. So that could be savings, loans, trading, insurance, and more. And this is accessible to anyone in the world with a smartphone or internet connection. So you think about, traditional finance outside of DeFi or centralized finance is your banks, right? If you want to earn, interest on your investments, you have options with them. But a lot of it's not transparent, right? They give you sort of a fixed rate. It's usually pretty low. There's some sense of security, so you feel like you can trust your bank. But ultimately, you don't understand what's going on behind the scenes. How are they delivering that interest back to you? And why can't you have sort of more of a voice in how they use your money to return interest to you? So much of DeFi is built on Ethereum. Ethereum is sort of the tried, tested, and true space that decentralized applications are built on. There are other blockchains in DeFi that are leveraged in DeFi. However, for the sake of this presentation and where Badger operates is on Ethereum. And up until recently, it was sort of rather difficult or not possible to bridge Bitcoin to Ethereum. So recent advancements have sort of led to this opportunity and sort of the inception of BadgerDAO, what we represent and how we operate. So really exciting stuff. So earning in DeFi, let's break it down a little bit. There are sort of many ways to learn or to earn rewards or earn interest on your crypto investments in DeFi, but I'm going to talk about three and one as it pertains to what Badger does. So you have lending. Lending platforms essentially allow you to earn interest by supplying your crypto assets to that platform. Generally, these are set up in such a way that you have to provide sort of 1.5 or in some cases more crypto assets than you're looking to potentially borrow on the other end in order to sort of, it's considered collateral in this case, so that if the underlying asset that you've put up to lend reduces in value, it automatically sort of pays back the lender. So very safe process for lenders, but essentially if you bet on the fact that your assets are going to maintain or go up, there's lots of opportunities with lending. Lending leads to borrowing. Borrowing leads to putting those borrowed assets to work and ultimately can generate more return on investment. There's providing liquidity, which means you supply an equal amount of a group of assets, usually two, to markets that let users then swap those tokens. And then you receive in turn a portion of those trading fees. So you're providing liquidity for, let's say in one case for us is the WBTC and Ethereum. So you put equal parts into the pool, and as people transact within that pool, you receive a portion of those trading fees relative to your holdings within those pools. And then there's yield farming, which essentially is staking or lending crypto assets in order to generate high returns or rewards. So in essence, I'll get a little bit into this, but on an individual level, yield farming is essentially, in its simplest form, taking crypto assets, moving around to various protocols, one of which could be BadgerDAO, farming your crypto, which essentially means depositing and earning rewards, and then taking those rewards and farming them elsewhere. It's sort of a journey to sort of find the best yield and best return on your crypto. So what is Badger? Well, Badger is a decentralized autonomous organization. It's a big mouthful. I'm sure most of you have heard this term this week quite a bit. We're considered a DAO, and that's why we identify as BadgerDAO. Our single purpose is build the products and infrastructure necessary to accelerate Bitcoin as collateral across other blockchains. So we've decided to really put all of our eggs in the Bitcoin basket. Why, do you ask? Well, it's the most held cryptocurrency in the world, makes up 50% of all cryptocurrency basically in existence. It's a 1 trillion plus market cap currently, and always going up as the price of Bitcoin goes up. There's currently only 1% of the entire Bitcoin supply circulating in DeFi today. So when you think about our user group right now, I'm sure many of you encountered, we have this essentially a super user group. They call them DeFi degens. They make up 1% that's currently active in DeFi right now, which leaves a huge opportunity, conservatively, to onboard a lot more Bitcoin into the DeFi network or ecosystem. It's easy to transact, and it really has sort of mainstream appeal. So anybody on the other side of things who's heard about Bitcoin, they've probably heard it in more mainstream media. It's talked about, first of its kind, really successful. There's lots of debate around it. So what that does is it sort of provides us additional awareness around it as an on-ramp to sort of being interested in crypto in general. And then we can sort of take it a step further and show you how to earn rewards or interest on your Bitcoin deposits. So all of this we see as a great opportunity. So now I'll try to go through our products a little bit. There are a few that I won't focus too much on because they're, I would say, a little bit more expert user, not super relevant. But nonetheless, let's go through it. So our first product is our Badger token. Badger token is sole purpose is a governance token. So what that means is that if you hold Badger, you can essentially liken it to owning shares in a company. You now have decision-making power around anything that BadgerDAO does. We use Badger to incentivize people to come deposit in some of our vaults as rewards. So we reward people in Badger token. Badger token does hold a value that's based on a number of market factors, but it's not promoted as sort of an investment opportunity. Its real utility is in its governance power. Now, Dig is sort of the second product, or I guess it was the one of two products that went out at launch. I'm not going to talk too much about Dig. Dig is probably our expert level product. Dig is a token. It's an elastic supply token that's pegged to the price of Bitcoin. And essentially what that means is every time that or Dig goes through what we call rebasing. Rebasing happens every 20 hours or 24 hours. If Dig's price at the time of rebase is less than the price of Bitcoin, what happens is the supply decreases. So the overall supply of Dig decreases. So if you own, say, 1 Dig in your wallet, after a negative rebase, so less than the price of Bitcoin, the portion in your wallet actually gets smaller. What the goal is to drive the price of Dig, making it more scarce, drive it up so that it can match the price of Bitcoin. And on the other side, does the same thing in reverse when Dig's actually over the price of Bitcoin. So what's interesting about this is, in general, when you own Bitcoin, a number of Bitcoin, and that's sort of it. It represents whatever the price of that token is at the time. With Dig, you actually own a supply of the token. So there's sort of exponential growth if you're a holder of it. Again, sort of more of a complex model, more for an expert level user, so won't dig too much into that. And then you have Badger Boost. Badger Boost is really interesting. I won't go too much into it, but essentially what it does is it incentivizes a certain behavior within the app that supports the success or growth of the protocol by actually boosting Badger rewards on all of our vaults. So if you're a user, the higher boost you have, the more Badger rewards you will receive as a depositor of a vault. How does that work? Well, essentially we do a complex ratio, but in simple terms, it's the ratio of your Badger assets, so Badger or Dig, those are what we consider our native assets, to your non-native assets, which in this case is WBTC, let's say. The more Badger dig or native assets that you have relative to your non-native, points, I think, for everybody listening today. So main product being set vaults. So set vaults are essentially, we'll call them vaults for the sake of this presentation. What they do is they run strategies sort of in the background, right? So they have different assets that you're able to deposit into them. The simplest vault that we have is a one asset vault. It's just WBTC. If you have WBTC, you deposit into that vault, you begin to earn interest on your WBTC in Bitcoin, and then you earn additional rewards that incentivize people to deposit into that vault. These strategies are built into what is called smart contracts, and smart contracts are basically like a set of rules that tell the vault what to do. So it's taking those assets, it's going around and farming it to find the best yield, and then it's returning those rewards back to the users of the vault. Now, the Badger Bridge is a product that we do in partnership with a protocol called Ren Protocol. It's essentially their product, but what that allows you to do is if you are outside of the DeFi ecosystem and you're a holder of Bitcoin, you've bought it on Coinbase or any other centralized exchange, what it allows you to do is convert that to a wrapped version and bring it over to the Ethereum blockchain. Because when you hold native Bitcoin, it exists on the Bitcoin blockchain. In order to participate in DeFi, especially or specifically with Badger, you have to bring that Bitcoin over to the Ethereum side. And that's what the Badger Bridge does in essence. So it allows you and sort of makes the process really easy to go from native Bitcoin, a couple clicks. It's a little bit of a long process at the moment. We're working to make that a little bit better. But essentially, in a few hours, you can go from native Bitcoin to earning interest in one of our vaults. And sort of like the flagship product, the one that we're, putting most focus on moving forward and into the future is interest-bearing Bitcoin. So why is this exciting? Is because it essentially allows you to leverage your position in our vault to sort of farm elsewhere or to earn or lend or borrow elsewhere. So what IBBTC is, it's a representation of your WBTC position in one of our WBTC vaults, so our wrapped Bitcoin vaults. So what we're working to do is make the Badger Bridge, integrate a mint and earn feature into the Badger Bridge. So it allows you to take your native Bitcoin and convert it into IBBTC, which means that it's now in a vault already. It's earning interest. You mint IBBTC, which is a representation of that position. So you're earning interest over there. Now you have IBBTC. You can go cross-chain. You can go lend it on platforms as collateral to borrow other assets. And we're working on adding even more utility down the line. So a really exciting product and something that's, again, on focus moving forward. And I think it's a really great on-ramp for especially new users because at first, it's as simple as minting and earning. You're now in our vaults. Now we have this opportunity. You're in the ecosystem. Well, what else can I do with IBBTC? So a real educational opportunity and sort of to teach people gradually how to become more of a intermediate into an expert user in DeFi if that's something that they're interested in. So how does the DAO generate income? Well, it's generally just fees, right? So there are fees associated with bridging. There are performance fees on all of our vaults. So the fee is taken from the generated yield. And then there are withdrawal fees associated with removing your assets from the vault. And where does all of this money go? It ends up in the DAO treasury. So it's not in sort of the pockets of, let's say, what you would consider our core team or employees. It goes into a DAO treasury that's ultimately controlled by the community and governed by everybody who holds Badger token. I'll add a little bit more clarity on this here. So that brings us to community rules everything. So any new proposition or proposal is put forth in what we call a BIP. BIP stands for Badger Improvement Proposal. Anyone in the community, core team, or otherwise is able to create and post a BIP for consideration by everybody that basically outlines something that they want to do, whether it's develop a new product, further develop a partnership, use treasury funds to do something, change emissions, all these sorts of things. That's where it starts. And BIPs end up on our forum, and they have a certain sort of certain feedback period where we allow people to come on, review, comment, and give suggestions, feedback. We start the BIP process. So if someone's got an idea, we generally want to encourage them to start an RFF channel or a request for feedback channel. That essentially allows, a period of time for people to deliberate, talk about it, suggest ideas, give feedback, and ultimately shape the BIP before it actually goes live in hopes of, sort of coming out with the best solution possible. Once a BIP's been voted on, and I forgot to mention, you can vote on proposals. Once a BIP's been voted on and passes, we need at least 40 votes. If it passes, it goes to governance. And governance is hosted on a site called Snapshot. And essentially what Snapshot allows you to do is use your tokens to vote for the proposal. So you'll connect your wallet, it'll recognize your token holdings, and it'll allow you to vote on the proposal. Nothing goes forward or is passed, especially around treasury or use of funds, without going through this process every single time. Now, there are instances where we have a council vote. These are generally around sort of, contributor grants or, smaller financial asks that we run through our council. Just makes things a little easier, helps us be a little more agile. And currently we're working on sort of a governance 2.0, a sort of a revamp of the system. We'll still adhere to voting, but it's just how we go through that process that might evolve and change a little bit. And then community, the sort of the best part about, BadgerDAO is our community. We like to think we have one of the best, most engaged communities out there. I would say nearly 100% of the core contributors or contributors to BadgerDAO in some shape or form, whether it's dev, marketing, finance, econ, operations, came from community to now actively contributing as sort of members of the team. Our community is extremely supportive, especially around new users, learning how to sort of navigate the ecosystem. We have sort of the best support system, I'd say, in DeFi right now, extremely responsive and helpful. But also, like I said, lots of opportunity to come in as a community member, recognize that, hey, I think Badger could benefit from doing these types of YouTube videos, or, I'm a Solidity dev and I want to build strategies with BadgerDAO. Have you thought about this? That's sort of how these things start. It's a little bit more organic than most people are used to in terms of hiring or becoming a full-time employee, but really exciting and sort of a really engaging way to bring on new members. And a lot of it organic. And when it's organic, you get a lot of people who are generally really interested in the thing that they've suggested or started conversing around. So you've got sort of a distilled down to people who are dedicated and invested in what they're doing, which is really exciting. So how do you get started? People who are interested in perhaps depositing into our vaults, minting IBBTC, this sort of thing. So earning in a few clicks. I touched on this a little bit. In its simplest form, you start with a wallet. A wallet could be MetaMask. It's sort of like a widely used wallet in the space. You hold the wallet. That's what's going to hold your assets. In order to end up in the app, you have to acquire or bridge those assets. So in a lot of cases, if you already have Bitcoin, you can use the bridge to bring however much of that of your assets over and then begin earning in the app. You can also acquire already wrapped Bitcoin on decentralized exchanges by essentially swapping for them in their service. And that will allow you to sort of mitigate that. But if you don't have any assets already, you kind of have to start by purchasing some. And the best method is if you have Bitcoin, bridge your Bitcoin, bring it into the app, and then you're essentially earning at that point. So I'd love to provide some links. This is kind of a tricky time. We're in the process of launching an app refresh today and a full sort of website migration refresh next week. Some of the focus around that has really been just adding clarity. I mentioned earlier, 1% of all Bitcoin in existence is in DeFi. That means we've got 99% of that supply sitting in people's exchange wallets, cold storage wallets, sort of doing nothing but earning as the price of Bitcoin goes up. So we've got this huge opportunity to educate new users. And really, as the platform and the ecosystem and the user experience starts to get a little bit easier to understand and use, we're really going to shift our focus to bringing on new users and want to be prepared with as much educational content as possible to onboard, because it's still complicated, right? I think you remember with the internet, there was a while where, we'd get AOL CDs in the mail. It would give you 3 days worth of internet. If you wanted to use the internet, you had to, not be on the phone, go through this dial-up process. And even then, once you got there, it was hard to understand how to navigate. That's kind of where DeFi is right now. And so we're conscious of that as we bring new users into the space. The greatest part about our community is the Discord is where sort of the hand-holding happens. And that's where people are really happy to sort of jump in, help direct people. The support team is amazing, sort of bring people through the process so they feel comfortable and, can make sense of how to operate in DeFi. So I'm hoping maybe, Emma, next week when we go live with these new assets, like the app this week and next week with the website, maybe we can do a post and just let everybody know, because I think what that will do is it's going to provide a lot more clarity and sort of, give you a consumer journey from, what I've talked about today to ultimately earning, rewards in our app. So I think that will be sort of a good time to direct everybody there. But nonetheless, in its simplest form, this is sort of how things get started.
Yeah, no problem at all. William, that's great. So yeah, continue on.
Awesome. Yeah. So I wanted to touch on NFTs. I know we're talking about, digital fashion meets DeFi, really exciting stuff. We've sort of started to dabble in NFTs already. What we're really most excited about is adding utility to NFTs. NFTs are kind of the hot thing right now. There's potentially a little bit of a bubble that might pop. A lot of this is, it's around collectibles, but the exciting part of it is, people are acquiring NFTs and they're using it as their avatars, and it's identifying them in the space, and it's something of a social currency. So there's lots of excitement around it outside of simply the fact that, you could end up with a free Badger Punk that's now worth $1 million. So, there's two sides to that. For us, we really wanted to focus on adding sort of financial utility to our NFTs that draw back to the Badger app. So sort of our first go at it, we had some previous NFTs, which are not as relevant to today, but we released a limited edition jersey, so a physical piece of merch with an accompanying NFT, as you can see on the screen here. It was sort of, always the purpose behind doing both together. We thought it would be really exciting. Some people may just want the NFT, but now they get this really cool jersey. They're starting to make a little bit of headway in terms of connecting physical to digital, but it's not quite there yet. Nonetheless, why not get two things out of it? So we thought physical jersey, really cool, pair it with an NFT, and then eventually add utility to that NFT. So we did limited to 200 units. We sold it at a premium $2,000 price tag. We knew that we could demand that because of the financial utility that it carries. I think we sold out in just under 60 seconds, something along those lines. So really successful first launch. And we did it in a more traditional method, right? So we didn't auction on another platform. You bought the shirt, and as a result, you were rewarded the NFT. So we did more of a traditional method, and we found some of the feedback was exciting as, it went rather smoothly in comparison to others. So it was really exciting, something that we're super proud of. And more on the financial utility part is that we're currently working through what it means or what value it holds. But essentially, the NFT is going to add to the boost. So it's going to carry with it sort of a boost score. So, it'll boost up your ratio depending on what NFT you hold. So, for example, this is a premium one. It'll probably hold a higher boost, and it will now allow you to earn more rewards just by holding an NFT. What's exciting about that is we see it as kind of an on-ramp, right? As we move into the more mainstream, perhaps we're doing more mainstream partnerships with celebrities, musicians, athletes, bigger brands. We now are giving people a really cool collectible. They sort of understand NFT as a concept, but now it's got utility. And it's sort of an on-ramp into understanding more about DeFi and inquiring as to what BadgerDAO actually does. And so now we have people's attention and the opportunity to convert them into a user. So really exciting stuff. And then most recently, something that's still sort of in the works, and I encourage anybody listening today, join the Discord, join the conversation. This is a great example of sort of community efforts, resulting in something really cool. Is one of our community members just started designing sort of a spin-off of the punks, but Badger form. So essentially, a few people started using this as their avatar. Then it led to more people asking for one, more people, and now it's turned into sort of a full-blown project that we're hoping to launch later. Really exciting because, I would say that Badger might be the first of its kind as a protocol to mix sort of NFT art and avatars and all of the community around that with the brand and the protocol and everything that we do. So, organic, community-driven type thing. Another example of someone joining, taking interest in something, presenting it, and sort of gaining steam with it. People are proud to share it. We've got a lot of people. This is just a select few people who have actively put this as their profile picture. So now you've got a conversation starter for anyone on social who's using this as their profile pic. We're going to ultimately want to use these as reward for engagement. So, drive behavior that you want, which is engaged in the community, actively being a user, proud to be a user, talking about Badger. So we want to reward people with something, like an NFT. And then this results in some earned awareness, right? So this is, something that people are sort of wearing proudly in the ecosystem. The Decentraland jersey is an example of something that now will exist in another ecosystem, perhaps spark conversation, allow people to proudly sort of represent the brand in a really cool way, and get sort of that earned awareness. So that's it for the formal presentation. I'm open to some questions. I hope that sort of helped build a little bit of a foundation for DeFi and how we sort of play in the space. I wanted to keep it, sort of extremely simple. As I mentioned, I'm not a dev. I'm not a sort of finance guy. I come at this from, sort of a very traditional marketing background, and saw a really great opportunity in the space. So excited to sort of apply some of those tactics to something that's growing super fast. So happy to take some questions. Emma, can you hear me?
Sorry, my internet cut for a moment. Sorry about that.
No
okay, so great presentation. Are we okay then to go in for the AMA and start answering some more questions?
Yep.
Great. So one thing that I wanted to really start with is Badger focuses a lot on the community side of things, and you guys, you emphasize how much of importance this is. And I mean, this is not just Badger, but this is so much of broader crypto as well, because community really underwrites so much of the activity, the vitality within the space. So can you just tell us a little bit more about the community within Badger? And I know that you mentioned about the DAO and how it works, but more so, I guess, creators and designers wanting to be more active within Badger, within the protocol, even kind of suggest contributing to it, how they can actually, engage more.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so community is sort of everything for us, as I mentioned. Most of our presence exists in the Discord and then sort of Twitter as our promotional platforms. We're going to drive a lot of content to our website moving forward, so moving away from sort of Medium blogs into our own system. Nonetheless, we've got an extremely active community on Discord. Discord's a little bit of an acquired taste for some, I'm sure. It's sort of a new space if you're not used to it. There's lots of channels. It can get quite confusing where the conversation's going on. If you're really engaged, you're getting lots of notifications about stuff. But essentially, so Badger started as a fair launch, right? There was no money raised around the launch of the protocol. We simply incentivized people to deposit into our set vaults at the time with Badger awards. So if you were sort of an early adopter of the protocol, you would get rewarded in Badger token, ultimately, giving you governance power moving forward. So extremely successful launch. That was, I guess, the beginning of December. So we're like 8-10 months. Maybe I'm not doing the math right. Nonetheless, in starting that way, I think you really gave power to the community right off the bat, right? That's sort of what the business model was built on. The DAO represents a community-owned sort of organization. All decision making goes through the community. We're completely transparent about it. I think what sets us apart in some ways is our core team, or the contributors, are extremely active in the chats as well. So everybody's making themselves available. We do events every week where core team members sort of put themselves out there. Open discussions, AMAs, we focus on topics sometimes, we talk about products sometimes, but there's just lots of access, I guess is the key there. There's lots of access, there's always conversation going on, and there's always someone there to sort of answer your question, provide you with support. And so that's something that we really focus on. And as I mentioned, we're moving more into, again, prior to BIP going live, or the improvement proposal, is really starting up a channel, getting people's conversation going. Tell us what you think about our idea. Tell us how it could be better. What are we missing? So that there's real feeling of, having the power to affect change that you want to see. There's no bank in existence where you can go there and say, you know what, I think you should lower the fees on my account. It doesn't really exist, right? With Badger, you can do that. We've done that. We've allowed people to have decision-making power in stuff that ultimately benefits them. So that's sort of where our community is. And then in terms of contributor, there's lots of stuff going on. We have various channels focused on different topics. So, our general chat is sort of probably the most active, but then there's marketing channels. So if you've got, communications background, marketing background, creative, come join, tell us what you're thinking. If you saw something cool, a lot of things come from suggestions from the community, like, hey, I see you doing your events like this. Maybe you consider using that platform instead. I can actually help you get it set up. It's as simple as that sort of thing. So on the dev side, perhaps a little bit more complex. They're probably looking for more detailed stuff. That doesn't mean there's a barrier to entry there. It's just not something I can talk to. But from a creative standpoint, we're always looking for people with new ideas, new ways to sort of expand our efforts, communicate better, and add value in that way. So it's an open door policy, I'd say.
Mm-hmm. And another really interesting point, and you touched on this as well within your presentation, is that Badger had a fair launch. Mm-hmm. And this is something really refreshing in the space because, it's very much about being authentic to decentralization, and also just to, the way that crypto allows anyone then to come in. It very much broadens the base, that you don't have to kind of have a certain label or a certain threshold of capital to come in and contribute to a project or be a part of it. And it's principles that DIGITALAX, we uphold a lot ourselves. Same like Badger, no VC, no investors. It's completely community kind of run. And so can you speak a little bit more to this? And I guess just why did Badger take that stance from the beginning? Why did you guys see that as such an important route to follow and go down, rather than say start with, kind of capital coming from a concentrated base like VCs, like investors, and then say potentially progressing after that?
Yeah, I think it's a living your values type of scenario. So determining early on that this is, truly going to do the most possible to adhere to what a DAO represents. And that's, again, putting sort of the power in the hands of everybody. So everybody sort of comes at it equally. I think, part of it is it was a little bit of good timing with the launch. Part of it is we probably didn't expect so much success in such a short period of time. I think the brand established itself really early on as sort of a trustworthy one. It's fun, but it's also focused on the things that people care about, which is community, security, appearing trustworthy, transparency. If you start from there and you try to maintain as much of that moving forward, I think those are sort of the keys to success. Obviously, there's some part of decentralization that begins more, akin to centralized, right? Some people have to kind of get the wheels rolling and make some decisions and put stuff in place. But the goal is to move towards that always more and more of just complete control in the hands of everyone. And I think, in a sense, a little bit of an experiment that really went well and paid off, and continuing to engage with people from launch until now to always make ourselves available, I think has really grown the community in that way. And then again, focus on security, transparency, and building that trust with users has allowed us to maintain that. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no. And another point that I want to touch on, and you mentioned this in your presentation as well, was the really cool Badger NFTs and these jersey jackets, and we have the Decentraland ones that we're gifting away as well. And to kind of carry on from one of the listeners asking about what non-financial utility and ideas does Badger have with considering kind of its next move into NFTs? Are you guys looking at other areas that you can take this, or kind of different use cases? I mean, I know that you kind of talked about the intersection with NFTs and DeFi and what you're looking at there, but what are kind of the other crazy ideas that maybe the Badger community or team is considering of where this could go? Because it's very it's a broad range. I mean, there's kind of sky's the limit. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, I think it's interesting that NFTs sort of have, in some cases, in our case, utility, but in a lot of cases, it's collectability. I liken it a little bit to sort of like the sneaker world, when you think about sort of the scarcity of something and the rarity and who's wearing it and who's proud to, be in public with it, et cetera, et cetera. There's that cool collectible thing. But interestingly enough, the sort of Badger punk spinoff, immediately there's no plans to add financial utility to it. So it's sort of developed in itself as this community engagement piece that's sort of driven itself forward, which is really exciting. We're going to work to add a little bit more formality around it, but ultimately, how can we use NFTs to gain awareness of Badger and what we do? So, being proud to put it as your profile pic, and essentially go around DeFi, showing that you're proud to be a Badger. How can we use rewarding with NFTs to drive behavior that we want, that ultimately supports the success? So we've talked about stuff like, NFT collections, encouraging people to collect, a set, and that set results in something, whether it be, the sky's the limit, access to an event when we're back in person at conferences, or maybe that's a one-of-one super rare NFT that you get that you can be proud to put up that nobody else has. So a lot of it around driving behavior, but it's an open book at this point, right? The sky's the limit. I think ultimately it would be really cool to start leveraging some mainstream attention around it, to use that as sort of an on-ramp into DeFi. So whether that be through, again, partnerships with athletes, musicians, larger brands. They're certainly taking an interest in it. So now we can bridge the gap and say, hey, you know what Bitcoin is, right? And you know what NFTs are. Well, let's figure out how we can bridge the two together in a really cool way, and educate people on what they can do and how they can sort of have some more financial freedom and be control.
Mm-hmm. And it's an interesting thing as well. I mean, with Badger being very rooted as well within, the Bitcoin community and bridging the liquidity there. Is there any kind of metaverse NFT activity on Bitcoin at all? I mean, I know that I've heard that some marketplaces are potentially launching on Bitcoin, or they're kind of experimenting again with colored coins. Or is that something that you guys follow closely, or you really are more routed in the Ethereum ecosystem and just kind of bringing the liquidity over? I don't know. Have you heard of any of these kind of projects or protocols launching?
Yeah, I'm not super familiar with anything on the Bitcoin side. To put it simply, there's not current focus on moving any of this over to Bitcoin at the moment. The idea is really around bringing liquidity to Ethereum and adding utility or finding new ways to put your assets to work. So we've got cross-chain strategy where we're opening up vaults or partnering with lending platforms on different chains so people can actually move it around. But essentially, I think, it's safe to say we're on Ethereum, we're focused on it, and we're here to stay for the foreseeable future. But nonetheless, cross-chain, especially with IBBTC, as I mentioned, is sort of a big push into the future. How can you move IBBTC around and find utility in other places? But yeah, in terms of NFTs, not so sure. I think for the time being, focused on staying with ETH and working on a little bit of a cross-chain strategy.
And then another interesting question that we have is someone's asking if the DAO or its members take profit, is there any tax liability, or how should members take taxes? And I know that's kind of a difficult question to answer because it very much depends on jurisdiction and region and specific cases. But is that something that, I guess, more broadly speaking, members of the BadgerDAO and the community, is that like a focus in a sense of, well, how do you kind of bridge the TradFi regulation side with then also engaging within DeFi protocols? Because we're still in very much early stages, and we've seen like the infrastructure bill in that past kind of the first stage here in the US, and other jurisdictions as well, kind of passing stricter regulations around certain crypto activities.
Yeah.
Is that something that members of BadgerDAO kind of focus on, or you find is a challenge, I guess, with onboarding new users? Like how do you guys see approaching the regulation and legal side?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. It's a huge focus for us at the moment, and something that early on was difficult was, if you become a core team member, or we'll call it core team member. Essentially, you take some of your portion of payment. Again, all payments and what people are paid for their contribution is very public and something that the community has feedback and say on. So a lot of that has to be justified. But essentially, you take a portion in Badger and a portion in USDC, so US pegged coin. What that allows us to do is sort of ensure that people have some skin in the game. You're invested in Badger and its success, but also ensure that you can you don't have to go through the process of backing out Badger into your fiat wherever you might live. In terms of taxes, as of right now, it's on the individual and where they are in the world to kind of determine how they go about their individual claiming. Badger is working pretty hard behind the scenes to find a way to legitimize the organization in such a way that it can, provide financial reports and ultimately be accountable to paying taxes as well. And subsequently, you think of employees as individual contractors in a scenario where they would then invoice the organization, similar to sort of traditional world, and it'd be responsible for their own sort of business related taxes. At the moment, super ambiguous. There's a lot of going on, a lot regulation-wise that's being talked about. So it's something we have, fingers on the pulse to. Something that we think is extremely important to the longevity of the protocol, making sure that we are above board. It's something that we can be proud of, and something that people can feel secure in when they interact with us. So yeah, it's certainly difficult. And again, like you mentioned, regional. It is sort of how people are handling it. It's different in various regions, but no, it's one of those things. When we think about trust and you think about security, you want to know that the protocol that you're putting your assets in is doing all they can to sort of adhere to what's going on and be above board and sort of live the values essentially.
Mm-hmm. And to bring the conversation back more to the metaverse side, because a lot of people are really excited to hear more about that. Has Badger thought of kind of bridging or moving into any virtual worlds at all? Like today we kind of have Decentraland, Crypto Voxels, Somnium Space. Is this something that your community or team has looked at? Is how do you even kind of buy land in some of these virtual worlds? And that could be interesting even when we think about financial assets, or combining virtual land with other financial assets, or even kind of the liquidity process.
Right.
Yeah, is that something that you guys have thought of?
That's interesting. No, not personally. I know and I can't remember the name of it, but there's a meeting platform that essentially allows you to operate in sort of a metaverse, but now you have like your Zoom meetings there as well, and you can meet up in rooms. It's something that people have brought forth, and it's not something that we have particular strategy around at the moment. It is really sort of interesting for me when I'm thinking about this sort of stuff. It plays into, where is the user that we want to sort of educate, talk to, bring in. At the moment, metaverse would be a really cool way to sort of interact with a new group of people, or potential users in DeFi. But this, if there's anybody listening today that has ideas around that, or is sort of deep into those worlds and thinks that there's a potential opportunity for Badger to have a presence or something cool we could do, this would be like one of those scenarios where coming into the Discord, you can message me directly, you can start chatting with the team, you can start sharing this type of information, and it could turn into something a little bit more. It could turn into a contribution in a more formal sense, and can ultimately become a project for somebody. We're a pretty lean team, so we try to do what we can and prioritize, but when people come in with really good ideas that can't be sort of passed on, we'll find ways to work with them and bring them to life. So
no, that's really exciting. And then one more question before we close up the session. Someone else is asking, what are the future goals and I guess priorities of Badger? I know that's a big question as well, especially in crypto. Things move so fast. It's like one day is almost like 3 months in the traditional world. So what is kind of the big focus of Badger moving forward?
Yeah, a great question. So I encourage everybody here to follow us in the Discord and on Twitter. That's where you're going to get a bulk of the information. Hopefully next week we'll share the website link and people can kind of take the journey. And I'd be interested to hear feedback after as well from new community members on how that experience was for them. But funny enough, a roadmap is coming out, either tomorrow or early next week that's going to touch on a lot of this. But to kind of put it simply, it's continuing on down the road with the same mission, focusing on IBBTC as sort of that flagship product that we have. But we see a future where this entire process of getting involved in DeFi, similar to how you can now log into the internet anywhere, is to really make it sort of a one-click to earning, but hammer home this idea that you're in control. You're not setting up an account. You have your own wallet. You have your own assets. You have access to pull them out or put them in whenever you want. But this is sort of your one-stop shop to putting your Bitcoin to work. And so we see that sort of, there's been a lot of talk around, is there two versions of our app in the future? One version supports the super user that wants to kind of peek behind the curtain, understand the strategies, and is a little bit more active and choose their own journey type thing. And then there's the new user who's like, wow, this is, a really decent APY. I've just got a bunch of Bitcoin sitting in a cold storage wallet or an exchange wallet over here. All I have to do is come to the app, deposit, and now I'm earning interest. That's simple. I don't need to know much more. I'm glad I have Badger rewards, but maybe I'm not super active in governance. But nonetheless, I'm now sort of participating in DeFi, and I'm earning on my crypto, which is super exciting. And then sort of the in-between of that is now we provide the resources that if you want to go from being sort of that simple one-click user to starting to learn a little bit more about how to navigate the ecosystem and choose your own journey, we provide the resources to do that as well. So it's a game of playing sort of catch up, right? And we're getting closer. Something that's really exciting is, we're working to really speed up the bridging process, something that I had said, it takes quite a few hours at the moment. We're working on making that sort of an instant. So that takes sort of that fear or scariness out of transferring large amounts of assets into DeFi. And that's taking us a step closer to, again, that one click. Now you're earning, similar to centralized, crypto earning platforms like a BlockFi and Celsius, but you can choose your own destiny and you're always in control. So that's sort of the focus. There's obviously a lot more. I encourage people to read the roadmap and sort of a year in review when it comes out. It'll provide a lot of that clarity, but excited for the future. So there's lots of opportunity.
No, it's very interesting, specifically for Badger, focusing on, kind of unfreezing, like you put it, the entire Bitcoin liquidity and really bringing that into Ethereum, where there's the activity and the community, the ecosystem. So yeah, it's kind of like the work of NFTs, unfreezing the value of digital assets and physical assets as well. But, things that previously it's like unsure about how we can use them. Now we can actively define value around them. So yeah, look, William, honestly, that was a very insightful presentation. I'm sure that everyone listening in felt exactly the same way. So it's been a pleasure having you and hosting you. And yeah, thank you for joining Web3 Fashion Week.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was awesome, and hope we can do more in the future. And really encourage anybody, send me a message on Discord. I'm will.i.am on Discord, BadgerDAO, easy to find me, somewhat active in the community, so you'll see me there. But yeah, if you have any questions, that's the best way to reach out, or on Twitter. I'm happy to do DMs that way. And then look out for a new website next week. I'd love for everybody to take a look at that.
Perfect. No, we'll put all the links in our Discord chats as well. So yeah, thank you so much, William. We'll speak soon.
Thanks so much.
Bye. Okay, thank you, everyone. That was a great presentation with BadgerDAO and William. And the next one is another DeFi Creators Workshop coming up in 30 minutes from now with InstaDApp. So InstaDApp is another exciting protocol within the DeFi space. They're currently sitting at number 2 on DeFi Pulse when it comes to total value locked. And they're also a newer protocol in the space as well. So